Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. I've watched this film on loop over the last week, test running it, making my notes, checking that it's going to run, putting it on 4 pen drives, putting it on one hard drive, making sure it reaches here without a problem, right? And one thing that's always struck me is people like His Holiness or Desmond Tutu seem so unattainable. They seem like, they've made it and they're so different. But when you look at the life stories in films like this, you realize that they're as real as any one of us and that they have chosen every day of their life. The story of forgiveness that Desmond Tutu shared, to forgive the murderer of your child and to find that strength and courage and to create that. And what he so beautifully says, that those who haven't forgiven don't know how powerful it can be, that it is not a sign of it's not a sign of weakness. Two stories come to my mind. One, of the first time, so when I saw this film, it was a non-negotiable in my head that we have to screen it. And though I work in environment education, one would imagine Protect Terra Ka or Spirituality Ka, या Protect Terra Ka or Desmond Tutu and Dalai Lama's film. What has it got to do with each other? And essentially, it simply comes down to the fact that our connection to our planet is broken. Our connection to our Earth is fractured, and it's fractured because our connection to ourself is fractured. And the role of compassion, even for the planet, is as deeply important as it is for ourselves. The first time I realized there's a story. So I've had the great fortune of being in the presence of His Holiness on my 30th birthday. I've also had the great opportunity of working in South Africa for a few months of my life. So, having seen the kind of landscapes these people are talking about to some extent, uh, I can imagine what it means to still hold that amount of love in their life. A friend of mine who should have been here today, but he is in Vietnam working with some peace talks. Damko Wangyal, a very dear friend of mine, is a Tibetan refugee coming from the royal family of Tibet. And he crossed over the border on foot as a young boy. And he and I were at the Asia Pacific Youth Conference speaking about inclusive leadership. And I remember at that point, this was about 6 years ago, I remember that at that point, I was still very angry with the Chinese in general, because I'm from the wildlife conservation background, right? I'm a wildlife biologist. So the fact that our tigers are being killed and that ivory is being poached and there's a mess happening, I was just angry with the whole of China. And I just, China is the demon. And I remember Damko speaking on the panel right after me. And somebody asked him this question, that how have you come to acceptance of the fact that you're never going to see your homeland, you're never going to see your parents? And he went on to share that technology allows me to see their face, smile at them, hear their voice now, but I grew up not being able to get in touch with them. Letters would get intercepted. And he's younger than me. I'm 38. He's maybe about 8 9 years younger than I am, or 7 years younger than I am. And he said something incredible when somebody asked him about how is it that you are a leader, and how have you moved beyond this life story. And in the exact same words that Desmond Tutu said, that to realize that it's a systemic problem and not every Chinese person is bad, and that even the people in China themselves are suffering with the hands of the system at this stage. So I have had to move beyond my anger and go to them at a human level and ask them, what is it that you struggle with, what is it that you face, and how is it that we can build a world which is more unified together. That was the first time in my life I made a Chinese friend. It was the first time at the Asia Pacific Youth Conference I actually walked over and asked somebody from China about their life story, and it comes full circle. One begins to realize exactly what they're saying. That at the end of the day, we are one humanity living under one moon, one sun, one earth, and with what's happening in Iran right now, with what has happened with the apartheid, with the fact that a man like Nelson Mandela came back after 26 years and still put a smile on his face and said, let's just forgive the people who put me in jail, is insanely powerful. And a deep reminder for all of us that if we can on a Friday evening sit here in an auditorium and watch a film, we are privileged. And we have the choice to use this incredible privilege for massive change. And we really shouldn't be the people who complain about the story. And that's the biggest lessons I've taken again and again, after watching this film. We have in the panel later somebody who's worked with people's rights movements, and it will be wonderful. We are a small audience, which is nice. It allows for more conversations as opposed to more crowd management for us. So it will be nice for you to stay and listen to the stories of people's movements and what it means to actually work towards building resilience and building compassion in the face of uncertainty. We move to couple more things. Has anybody ever had the opportunity to visit Dharamshala or yeah, there's a
brought to the people, and I feel he has now sort of transcended just the human body and become something more of a something that people have pinned their hopes and dreams and aspirations into. So to be around that energy, to be around that spirit of hope was definitely transcendental. It's very rare that individuals are able to, sort of garner this kind of emotion with political leaders and celebrities. Uh, you feel almost a divisive force. There are teams and there are parties that are divided, and you're either team blue or team red. Um, with the Dalai Lama, with His Holiness, it didn't feel like that. I did have one complaint, however, there was a lot of disposable packaging that was being used. And he was handing out cookies and treats, and that was one complaint, but of course I never got to air those to him. If I ever meet him again, or if ever any of you do, please make sure to send him that message that joy and compassion has to be shown to the ocean as well, where most of this plastic ends up. So other than that, it was a great experience, and hopefully I get to do it again sometime.
Then 6, and I was actually fortunate to be working in Delhi at that point. The skins had all traveled from Delhi newspapers over the Tibetan Autonomous Region and moving into what was possibly China or Southeast Asia. But when they were intercepted, there was thousands of skins. There was about 35,000 skins of various different animals together, out of which 54 were tiger skins, and some 531 leopard skins or something like that. And they realized that in Tibet there is something called the Litang festival where they wear these skins as a tribute to power. They're supposed to be prestige. And when it was brought to the attention of His Holiness that do you know that in Tibet at the Litang Horse festival people are wearing real tiger skins and this is what happens, he ordered a mass burning of Tibetan skins in 2006, and all Tibetans came together and basically said they would not use real skins anymore, and an ancient practice was changed overnight because of what this man can mean to so many people. I had a much similar experience. I was in between 3,000 Tibetans and he was there, and I just wept when I saw him. It was incredible energy. Yes, one more and then we can go to the next one. Because they're speaking of the same thing, right? They're speaking of change. They're speaking of change at a deep level. They're speaking of disconnect at a deep level. One is an activist, but the other two are also activists. When I found that they are actually so much more similar than what is at the outset, we had to bring them together. I invite you to really kind of take this film and superimpose it upon what you're going to watch next, because the next one is hardcore. It's hard hitting. It opened my eyes to so many things. I mean, Vandana Shiva she's incredible. She is the daughter of a Himachali, also a Gandhian eco-activist, and known as Dr. Vandana Shiva. She stood up to the corporate Goliaths of industrial agriculture, rose to prominence in the seed-saving and organic food movements, and is inspiring an international crusade for change. She is in Germany as we speak. We were in touch with her to try and get her here, but she's currently in Berlin. Among those engaged with organic food and farming, climate change, biodiversity, seed sovereignty, globalization and social justice, Vandana Shiva is an icon of a global movement. The film is produced and directed by Camilla and Jim Beckett and is an extremely powerful narration. Post the screening, a discussion about a lot of these things will essentially happen. The more I say about people like this, the lesser I think I do justice. So we rather hear it in her own voice. This is the story of her life. And I will be back right after that.